My name is Cory King. I'm the managing partner here for the Casa Group. That's a real estate sales team here in Knoxville, really dedicated towards serving investors and landlords. So we really focus in the residential, small multifamily space. So if that's a need that you maybe happen to have, we're happy to reach out and have that conversation with you. I've been an investor now for, since 2009 when I started off just on my house hacking journey, right? I was 22, bought my first house, brought in a couple of roommates, started just saving my cash and just rolling that over. The wife and I moved to Knoxville back in 2017, 2018. And it was right about that time that I just jumped into the sales side of things, which was really awesome. Just started becoming that agent investor, started going out, building up a good pipeline of business, and then using that cash to go and invest into real estate. And it's been a pretty amazing journey now at this point. Now we've got about half a dozen rentals, including our own. We definitely are more of the fix and flip into buy and hold. So I like to use my fix and flips to then take that cash and go roll over into buying a home, which is a lot of fun. Those are really my favorite things to play in.
Yeah, and just, I think when I look at Cory, I got to see Cory when he first got started. My name's Justin Myers. I've been in real estate. I started as a mortgage broker in 2005 when I was 23 down in Tampa. And so I've got to work for a lot of great teams. I've had like a weird Mr. Magoo Forrest Gump life, where just sort of ended up in a lot of interesting places as a fly on the wall. And just has been really interesting watching Cory. He came, partnered with us, worked on a team that I was on. We came and partnered over here on another real estate team of just like what you can accomplish in 5 years. We all overestimate what we can do in 1 year, underestimate what we can do in 5 years, where Amelia's at home right now. Cory's got 3 kids under 5, right? And has been able to like build this thing up, starting with just some real gradual, because you bought a home right after the Great Recession down in Florida, rode that equity elevator that everyone's on right now. If you're in the market, inflation's not hurting you. It's
helping you.
Yeah, if you're in the market. If you're not in the market, when we go through these cycles, it can be dispiriting to feel like you're getting left behind. But there's still opportunity. I want to give you one piece of encouragement while I'm stalling for some time. Rob Chavez started great. He told me this story. He was really smart. He timed the market back in 2007. He sold all of his assets, and he felt really, really smart. By 2012, right, all the foreclosures had washed through, and he saw how much things had run up. He was in the DC area, and he said, man, I feel like the market is overvalued, so you can get back in and jump in and buy this. We've had this conversation. He says, if I didn't sell any of those assets in 2007, I'd be done. I'd be totally done right now. Like, I would go back in time and buy assets at the peak of the market. Who wouldn't if you look at the prices, right, overall? And I keep that in mind of just having some hubris. We're going to talk about creative real estate investing strategies, and they're sexy and they're exciting and you can do some really cool things. And I just have seen a lot of people get rich and not all of them build wealth over the years. I was a mortgage broker and I was working with cell phone salesmen and jewelry salesmen. Now that I have broccoli hair, the ones, they'd be on YouTube, they'd be making TikToks and dancing in the office. Same guy, they just, and they were making $19,000 a month, $16,000 a month. All went sideways. The guy running the office, I went to work for a company that was owned by the Gambino crime family. This is a true story. This mortgage company, driving a G-Wagon, when the things hit the wall, he was bar backing at the Green and Water and his wife left him. Like I saw a lot of people make a lot of money, they didn't keep it all. And so just, we're going to talk about step by step, running it by. I think that if you're looking to hold these things for a long term, like Cory's doing, real estate investing is fairly foolproof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're willing to play like the buy and hold, again, that's definitely my favorite avenue to play is I'm just patient. I can wait this out.
100%, because there's no one that had on their dance card like, Trump's coming back, it's going to be great for real estate investing. I guess we're doing tariffs. Like, no one called that. I didn't see a single prognosticator going like, coming into the fall, who knows how new construction is going to work, because we just don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. Like, it might be great negotiating, but that was not anyone's scorecard. Nor was COVID, nor was the Great Recession, nor was any of this stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
All right, we're going to move on here. I don't know what's happening. I was waiting for Garrett So
I think we're good.
When Dalton comes back.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
Excellent. Excellent.
So really, just here celebrate some wins.
Perfect.
Who's got some wins just from the last month since we got together?
Who's in like a really bummer mood? Who loves Who's down? I know this is East Tennessee, and we're all shy. What's going on?
Nathan, what's up, brother?
Nate Parsons. Contractors don't do their job? Oh, okay.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. There's a great joke about how you know Jesus is a carpenter because he hasn't come back for 2,000 years. This is not anything new. All
That's
right.
good. Oh. Who's got a win they'd like to share? Personal, business, real estate?
I'm going to start calling on you guys.
Yeah, I know someone. Guy,
Corey's got
what's
a
up,
win.
brother?
Guy, what's your win, bro?
I'm Guy. I interviewed for a job a couple weeks ago and got the job.
Let's go.
Let's go, dude. Good stuff.
Let's go. What's the job, Guy?
Y12.
Y12? Fantastic. That's a great job. Congratulations. Guy is new here, everybody. Make Guy feel welcome. I'm glad you're here, Guy. Fantastic. Corey's got a big win. Corey's got a big win. So, Cory celebrated yesterday because you got this. You said you wrote yourself a check for this flip, right?
Yeah.
And it was just in time for Corey's birthday because Cory turned 38 yesterday. So
Dude,
if
stop.
you'll join me real fast, if I can just borrow you. Thank you. I was like, I was stalling for so long. We're talking about macroeconomics. All right, to you, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Cory. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
that.
Whew. Love it. I know. It's chocolate on chocolate. If anyone wants this afterwards.
There you go. Yes,
That is why there's no cookies today. Got a great Publix sheet cake. Okay, awesome. Now we can get rolling. So, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but Cory actually had a really big win yesterday.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. So we were able to finish out our second flip of the year thus far. I had a goal this year to complete 4, so we just finished out number 2. We start on number 3 here next week, but that was really cool because that was really the biggest check I'd received from a flip. That was last Monday. We were able to get, it was a $100,000 check, which was pretty awesome coming off of that. So that was cool. Thank you. That was the math worked. All the stars aligned for that. It was cool. All of that, to be honest, came from this room. The deal came from this room. The contractors from this room. The money, I brought in a joint venture partner. He got a nice 20% return on his cash. He lent me $30,000. I gave him back 36.
So he lent the down payment.
Yep, that's right. Everything came from this room. So it really just shows like what's possible. It's just a matter of connecting, having conversations, building relationships. That was really cool. That was a huge, huge win.
Yeah. And we were
Yeah.
talking about this. You told me like the distribution you wrote, because 100 sounds sexy, and so you write
Yeah,
all the checks.
so you write all the checks out.
that you
That's
have
right.
to pay. But it was like okay, 40. I was like that. I remember I didn't make more than 40,000 until I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
I never cared about money, and it turns out that's a real good recipe to not make any money. When you're just like, yeah, I don't care about money. The universe is like, this guy does not need money. He's going to have a lot of friends and wait tables and work at Kroger. And yeah, I've done all those things.
No, Sam. So,
So
cool.
I love it. Congratulations. We
Thank
love you.
That's
Happy
cool.
birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very sweet.
Yeah. I had to scramble because you ever have the thing where you remember someone's birthday and then you forget it? I forgot Cory's birthday like 3 times yesterday alone. Where I'm like, oh, it's his birthday. I gotta. And then I forgot again and again. So you pulled it off today. Who else has one more win? Who's got something going on in their life? Be vulnerable. Vulnerability builds trust. Josh, what do you got?
As a result of coming here last month, I learned that I could get my mobile home dealer license and start buying houses cheaper than I've been buying. And all I gotta do is wait a few more days and I'll have it.
Yes.
Good stuff, man.
We're all just like one story away from an unlock. Cory was telling me a story about how somebody came into his life and gave him inspiration to turn to convert a church into a daycare, right? And then he shared some information back and she was able to go start buying duplexes really quickly. Like that's why I'm in these rooms is like, it's a 1% improvement, gradual improvement every day. Dalton, is Dalton hiding back there? Let me know when I can kick off the stream and I can.
No, we're on.
All right, so here we go. Boom. Kick me back to the front, DJ. We'll cut this thing. We'll get this going. So,
Sure.
Welcome to Grid. This is our May edition, Creative Real Estate Investing Strategies, how to owner finance, lease purchase, and do subject to.
That's right.
All right, we're
Let's
ready to get going.
I
So,
want to go ahead and just jump into our, let's just thank our sponsors.
yes,
Right. So we want to give a big shout out, man. We really couldn't do this without all of you. We also certainly couldn't do a lot of this without some of our sponsors. So we do want to just take a quick minute to thank some of our sponsors here. Well, we do want to thank Mary Ann Bujo with Choice Home Warranty. We've got our Dalton, our man behind the camera here for Horizon Media Group.
if you're not following Dalton on socials and you are a Vols fan, you are missing out. Dalton has been doing so much cool stuff with the NIL, with the university. Like, it's awesome watching this guy live his dreams. Like, definitely follow Dalton and Horizon Media on social. Also want to thank Kristen Wallace. You ready, Kristen, for your close-up? She's been practicing her public speaking because Kristen loves talking in front of people. This is the best property manager in Knoxville. No offense to any other property managers, but I've known Kristen for 15 years, watched her build her business, and I have never seen someone more tenacious, right, in terms of getting her money and accomplishing things than Kristen. She has built this business up from scratch to over 1,000 units. And like did this all like bootlegged it, bootstrapped it as a single mom. Very, very, very impressed to know her. Kristen, what do you got for the folks?
So I'm really nervous speaking in front of people, and Justin puts me in front of the camera one time and asked me what my vacancy rate was, and I said 100%. That's what I've got. So,
No.
it's not though.
That's a good record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this before, and everyone asks me what stuff rents for. I have no idea. I just ask Kristen. Like, genuinely, like, I just lean on a resource because I have more accurate information than any algorithm is ever going to be able to give me, right, through data scraping. Like, because she rents 1,000 units. So if you're looking for that information, if you want to know what's actually happening in the market from someone that's an investor herself and buys ridiculous deals, if you have any absurd deals that anyone would buy, call Kristen, because that's what she wants to always me to sell her. She does have a deal right now off market if you want to buy it. Ask her about it. Thank you. Glad you're here. We appreciate you.
Thank you, we appreciate you.
Morgan. Everyone meet Morgan. Morgan Hardy.
Just blast your microphone there. Yes, I'm Morgan Hardy. I work for Where We're At Foundation Mortgage. I am a loan broker, so I've got about 75, 80 different partner lenders that I work with. I can do all types of lending. My fix and flip lending is more for experienced investors, so that's why I definitely recommend approach lending. I've done it for my own flips, and Chris and Flint do a fantastic job at that arena. However, if you're looking for other stuff, if it's buying your own home, your personal home, or if you're house hacking like Cory's done, or if you're looking for rental income based loan, not off your personal income loan, I gotcha. So that's all I got.
Thank you, brother, appreciate you.
I printed it out.
I love it. Morgan had a really great post. If you're not in the Facebook community, Grid Knoxville Investor Mastermind is the private Facebook group. And he had a great post with the flips that he's done, the lessons that he's learned. I thought it was some really great takeaways. Check it out. Go search for it. All right.
It was a good time.
Who wants to talk about creative financing? Who? Yeah? This guy does. Important legal stuff. Don't sue us. Right? We're gonna tell some stories today about the ways in which real estate investing can go very wrong. Right? Like, these things can get, Zach's gonna share, we have a great speaker today, some of the reasons and lessons he's learned. So anything that you do, run this, get an inspection, talk to an attorney, right? Talk to a tax expert. Don't just go, I went to one meetup and they explained how to owner finance, and right? And now I'm strung out here because I didn't go run this by anybody, right? One of the best things you can do by being in this room is get a board of advisors. And you should be consulting a board of advisors before you pull triggers.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
There's a disclaimer too. We are recording
we're
this.
recording it.
So by attending, you've given us permission to record you. So if you're in the witness protection program, let us
Sorry,
know.
yeah.
Sorry. I'm impressed at your hustle.
Yeah.
Do we have any new folks? We giving away anything, Cory?
Yeah, we do, actually. So the biggest thing here on this one we always like to do is just tag us on socials, right? We talk to a lot of investors like around the country. We've got a good buddy of ours in Brendan Biddingham who talks about his biggest area that he receives a lot of his deals is just through social media. So like if you're looking at like how do I attract deals, how do I find deals, just be loud about it. Be online. Go on social, go online, go on Facebook, go on Instagram. Tell people what you're looking to do. Tell people you're looking to invest in real estate. Hey, I'm looking to buy homes, cash offers, that kind of thing. It does work. It attracts people. People study what you do.
We have done no paid outreach or
No.
advertising for this community, ever. And you know,
Yeah.
it does work. Like just talking about this thing does work.
Yeah.
It's
So
fascinating.
go online, take a picture of yourself in the room, tag us on socials, hashtag Grid Knoxville on Facebook or Instagram. We'll be doing a giveaway here at the end of the meeting. We put together a sweet little gift basket over there with some grid swag in there, Pace Morby book, Wealth Without Cash is going to be diving into our topic today as well. So just go online, tag us. We'll be doing a giveaway here later on today.
Anybody know Jessica Vine? Yeah?
Yeah.
Has anybody ever seen like her followers on social? I know Jessica and Joe. I've watched them
here,
this whole time. Jessica's got tens of thousands of followers by just jumping on and like talking. It's been really impressive, like to see what she's built, the deals that she's sourced, just as a result of using social media. Like I'm gonna keep saying it. We'll see if anyone takes action on it. And unpaid social media is the highest lead source for some of the most effective investors in the country that have access to mail rooms. They're doing thousands of deals.
Yeah, call
right?
centers.
Yeah, and he still says unpaid social media is his highest lead source. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we wanted to throw that out there.
Who has traveled the farthest tonight?
Yeah, who thinks they've traveled the farthest? We've had folks from like Italy, which
Italy
was
is
kind of
still,
wild.
is still my favorite.
Yeah, I don't
that
know if
guy
anybody's
was like
beaten
visiting
that.
his in-laws.
had Chattanooga.
Who does not want to talk to anyone tonight? Just I will not call on you if you just raise your hand. Who does not want to talk to anyone? No, Zach doesn't want to talk to anyone. We're good. Gotcha. We got the quiet investors. But seriously, who has traveled the farthest tonight?
Who thinks they've
Like
traveled?
just engage with us for 2 minutes, then we can all move on to I guess not talking to each other. Yeah.
Morristown.
Morristown. I think is Morristown going to take it? Nobody from. All right. Morristown. Fantastic. Richard's a flooring installer.
We got you, brother.
him
Connect
and
with
Phil.
we. Raise your hand. We's going to be your prize guy.
He's got some swag for you. Got some giveaways. All right. Anybody do their first deal in the last 60 days? Anybody come here because they want to do their first deal? I know Summer. Yeah, right. I didn't catch your name with it. Or Garrett? Yeah, Garrett.
cool.
Okay, these guys want to do their first deals. We can make that happen. What's the last category?
No, that was last. Tag us.
Perfect.
Yeah, go
All right,
online.
And who's
tag
new?
us here.
Who's new tonight?
Yeah, who's brand new people? Brand new first meeting.
Fantastic. I
Love it. Welcome.
Great.
Love
We've got
having
some
you in
new
the room.
investors in here. We've got some contractors, some developers. We've got, if you have not met Yusuf and Jen, they have moved here to start a ministry. Really great folks. You should talk to them. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Let's kick this off,
Let's
Cory.
do it.
Let's do some stuff.
Yeah, let's dive into it. So, we got 3 powerful tools we're going to be diving into tonight. We're going to be talking all about subject to, owner financing, and lease options.
And, you know, if you want, if we run through the 101, we might get into even some weird,
We're gonna get into some weird stuff at the
joint
end.
venture, person to person, like getting very creative, right?
That's right.
Love it.
Yeah, so
Cory, what is owner financing?
yeah, so in essence, really, owner financing is what it sounds like. It's when the seller finances the transaction, really all or part of it. This is most common for folks that have, say, owned the property for a long time. It's been paid off, and now they're looking to sell it.
So let's talk about why this is good for both parties, because they're both coming from a different region. So one of the reasons it's good for the buyers is because it is a quick way to close, right? If I've got owner financing, I do not have to go through a mortgage approval process. Anybody have complicated finances? Am I the only one, right? I took advantage of the extension this year. We had the disaster extension through November, so I've
Yeah.
not filed this year's taxes, which would make it complicated if I saw a deal because I have to hustle up and
Yeah.
do my taxes. So, right, they don't have to go through a loan process. What else, Cory?
Yeah, that's right. Lower closing costs in general, and you mentioned like we're not having the mortgage process to go through, so we're taking away some of those points and fees that can go into that front end of it. And some of these deals you could really structure out at a 0% down. What's really cool with this is both buyer and seller get a chance to really negotiate and set the price and terms for where this is going to go.
Yeah, because you can roll the closing costs in, and you're gonna have lower closing costs because, right, I'm not paying closing costs with a lender, right? I can get flexible. I would recommend you get title insurance, but I got some flexibility on the other policies that I have to pay. And maybe most importantly for this, owner financing can work. I know I'm the only one in the room with less than perfect credit. Everyone else has made amazing decisions their entire life, right? But you can do this. This can be an effective strategy if you have less than perfect credit, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Why would a seller want to do this?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you mentioned on the front end, it's fast, right? You can move
Any
something
sellers in here? Do we like our money fast? Yes.
always.
Yes.
That's right.
I
That's right.
forgot no one's participated today.
That's okay. So you can
I'll
certainly.
ask you for it.
A biggest thing on this too is just we talk about a lot of just lowering a tax liability. Right. So if I'm a seller and I take on just a large sum of money from an investment property, I'm now expected to pay a capital gains tax on that. Well, if I can owner finance this and I can stretch this out rather than me taking in, say, a lump sum of $200,000 in one shot, I have to now file on my taxes right up. I could instead take this in installments or payments. Maybe this comes across like $10,000. This amounts to like $10,000 a year or $20,000 a year. Well, I can find other places where I can write that income off, and it just is going to lessen my tax burden overall.
Yeah, and that's complicated. This is where we talk about on the front end, like talk to someone, right? Like don't just assume. I've seen too many assumptions. Like they may not have that seller may not have tax liability if they lived in the house 2 of the last 5 years. They may have a capital gains exemption. But this is when we get into the it depends.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And then really from there too, what's really neat is, again, you can really set the price and terms for all this, which means you could command a higher than market price for the property because maybe you're able to offer a lower interest rate on it all, right? Who would go pick up a property today if you could get a 4% interest rate on it?
I've got somebody I was talking to
Or
this
5.
morning. Has 11 acres out in East Knoxville and Strawberry Plants Pike, and he was throwing out 3% for some owner financing. Right? 3% might make a deal make some sense, right? At 3%.
With what kind of interest rate and
3% interest rate, Carrie.
well, what kind of down payment and
It's all negotiable.
is it is the value of the property that he is selling anywhere close to what the selling price is going to be? Otherwise, I don't see any point. I mean, I have property right now that I would own or finance, rental properties, but I would not do it with 0 financing or at 3% interest, even with, unless it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what would the incentive for the seller be?
What we just said.
This-
So I can walk you through it if you like. So if you're asking why would a seller, first of all, we're kind of talking about hypotheticals, but I think the question is why would
For me, it
why would
wouldn't be
Cory give these terms?
necessarily hypothetical. I've got
Sure.
the property and
So
I
why
should've
would
retired a
you?
long time ago.
So what's the specific question? Like what's the terms, or like what are the terms of the deal that I'm talking about? Or because I can tell you, I know deals. I know Jason McDaniel. I know Jason a long time. Jason's got 40 owner finance properties. I've sat there and talked to him. He has properties he has a 0% interest rate on because someone was stuck on a price. You know, not every seller is sophisticated. They were stuck on a price. He agreed to their price. They wanted a retail price for an investment asset.
But he's buying.
He is buying that. So you're asking why would a seller offer a lower interest rate? Because they might get out, they're stuck on a higher terms. For this guy, it might make sense because he could command a higher number.
If he's getting 20% more than what the property would normally sell for, then that would make sense to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if you're not getting enough of a down payment to CYA, you're really risking.
Yep.
Particularly, you're talking about, well, okay, then you're not going to need to, for the buyer, you're not going to need to be so concerned about having questionable credit.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I think it comes down just to situation and motivation for both parties in this.
Yep.
Right? What we're setting here is just going to be a framework for understanding some of these like concepts, but I understand where you're coming from. Like for you, it might not make sense to do that kind of deal, but for somebody else, given their situation, they might not need a big down payment because they don't need the extra cash.
Sure.
But they'd rather have the home that they could sell today for $700,000. Yeah, I'll get it for $1 million.
And,
Right.
and to just, for the sake of brevity, what I would say,
Lower interest rate, but there would have to
if
be.
you don't mind, Gary, what I would say for the sake of brevity is, don't do deals that make no sense. You should not go out and owner finance a property with almost nothing down for under market interest rates to someone with bad credit. That would not be a good deal.
Yeah, that would not be a good deal.
Okay?
That would not be a
We
way to
agree.
start
We're,
things
we're
off,
in
yeah.
total agreement. However, those are different factors, so I can move those levers and I can get creative in structuring a deal. And we're gonna get into some, Zach Clift is with us, and we're gonna walk through some specific examples of what these actually look like in reality. Zach's done over 20 of these
Yeah,
deals.
I'm curious, just kind of taking a poll of the room here. Just is anybody participating in an owner finance play on either side, buyer or
2,
seller?
3, 4, 5, 6.
Six,
I see six,
six,
seven hands, 8.
people.
Yeah, Zach.
Yeah. And granted, this can work too. This works in real estate, but like practically speaking, this can work for anything else. You can go to cars, you can do
Yes.
pretty much anything, right? It's all just price and terms. Anything you can really negotiate on at the end of the day. But it's cool to see. Like, yeah, there's a good collection of folks in the room that are actively participating in these kind of plays.
Sure. And then, what's the next slide? We're talking about.
What's up to?
So the cons of this, right? So what are the cons of owner financing? Well, the cons of owner financing can be, the eviction process is different than the foreclosure process,
That's fair.
right? And the cons can be that if anybody come to the how to be the bank, right? This is, you are now becoming the bank. So if I came to one seminar and I'm trying to do this, like I need to know, how do I underwrite deals effectively, right? How do I underwrite buyers effectively? How do I screen them effectively? All this data is out there, but this stuff can seem really simple. So, but yes, I would not give it that away, but this guy is willing to do, he wanted 30, for the record, it's 1.25 million, 11 acres, 2 houses on it. He said if you got 30% down, he'd be willing to carry a second here at 3%, open to some owner financing. Might be something for somebody where they could spread out the horizontal development costs, but I don't want to get too in the weeds about land, but that could be something where now there are more parties that can play than someone that has to go put down, 70%, has to put that down on cash. It's going to be difficult and then still needs the cash for the horizontal development to go turn that into 35 to 40 lots.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
So, again, the right situation can totally make sense. And that's really what a lot of these things, what we're doing is we're just arming you with like tools for your tool belt so that not everything has to be like a straight line or a conventional purchase. Like there's other ways to go about it, and certain situations might make sense for one or the other. Or we're going to dive into, I know here later on, there's going to be like some blended strategies in here too, which can get really exciting as well.
Yep. So right now we're just going to lay out the 101. So we have some framework when Zach gets up here. So if you're brand new, you're armed, you're not sitting here going, I have no idea what
Yeah, eyes
subject 2
crossed.
is. I don't even know what loan to value is. This is the first time I come to one of these meetings. This is all confusing. So
Sure.
what is subject to when
Sure.
you hear that term, Cory?
Yeah. So really subject to what it's relating to in that is really buying a property subject to the existing mortgage. I'm going to be taking over this person's payments at their rate. We're going to be working through some terms. So the buyer is actually going to assume the seller's current mortgage payments and rates in exchange for the deed of the home.
Yep, and nothing in real estate is new, right? This is, if we want to go back, sometimes you'll see like realtors posting on there about how in the 70s rates were 20%, 17%, right? When Volcker was in office, right? Running the Fed. And it was common then, you would see assumable mortgages. People might take over an existing note. Is the only way you can make some of these things work. So VA mortgages are assumable. I just saw somebody buy a home and he assumed someone else's VA mortgage. Previously,
Yeah.
some others are not. Like again, you want to get into all of this stuff is it depends, and we can get into the weeds pretty quickly on these. But so this concept has existed previously. There's times when it's been very widespread. There are times when it's been niche and Pace Morby's built an empire off of it. But it's just taking over existing financing. So why would I want to do that, Cory?
Yeah, that's right.
Why would
So-
a seller want to do that?
Yeah, sure. Well, certainly it solves a problem that they have first and foremost. They could mean speed. I've got to move quickly. I don't have time to go put this on the market at the desire. I don't really know what my next steps are, but I know I've got to get this payment, say, off of my books, or can get them the cash that they need in a quick time frame in order to do that, and can help them build back their credit as well. Maybe they've hit a spot of a low point, letting things fall apart on their credit end of it. So by somebody taking over those payments, they've maybe gotten behind. You can help those people catch up those payments, take over those payments, which is going to help build their credit up.
All sellers, every motivated seller has one of two categories. Sometimes you see both of them, right? It's circumstance or it's emotion, right? I'm in a circumstance where I need a solution. You know, something's going on. I'm getting divorced, whatever. We've got to move, right? I need to sell this house. Maybe I bought this house. This wouldn't be the case now because the rates aren't great. But there certainly was a time where, you know, if you bought a house and you have to sell, there's not enough room in there, right, to sell. You might have to go negative. But you might be able to do subject to and take over because there's not enough equity. That's been something that can make sense. You know, and then in terms of building credit, we've walked into these situations before where you had somebody, they've had a second that was threatening to foreclose. They were totally behind on the second. And the first, they couldn't keep up, right? Their partner had passed away. This was the deal we talked about last year in Virginia, right? The partner had passed away. Our team up in Virginia talked to them. They said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We'll take care of that entire second, right? We're going to take this over, subject to. We'll do this with an external mortgage servicing company, so we're going to make the payments every single time. And what that did, that became, instead of becoming a negative, that has become a positive trade line for that person because they went through all the steps to actually do this thing correctly, right? Where it's reporting to credit. There's a third party that is, you know, your mortgage servicing company. Anybody bought a house at another company now, you have to send payments to?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Every oh my book ends up
Yeah.
getting sold to somebody else.
So there's a third-party mortgage servicing company that collects those payments. That's their business model, unlike, you know, the origination of this or the packaging of the debt. So that's a way that it could be advantageous. And then, you know, the buyer was sophisticated. They were able to negotiate that second down, right? Sometimes they have the resources and the skills where it's a win-win for everybody, right? Hey, I negotiated a payment for the second. They took that, and then I turned this around, bought the property, and they gave me, you know, more money to make the deal work.
Yep.
Why would a buyer want to do this subject to?
Sure. So a buyer might be in a position where they can't necessarily get traditional financing in that. Maybe their credit's in a tight spot as well. So it might just not be an option for them to be able to do it. Good for them is they get to own the home on it, right? They're getting the deed for this property, so now they've got a controllable asset that they can then go ahead and leverage and build some equity faster in.
And then number 3 is probably the most important thing here. We've talked about this before. We've shown the graph. Like the reason why real estate investing works over a long time. Why are people landlords? Why do they do all of this? Because if you're buying and holding, if you're doing this traditionally, over time, the way the amortization table works, you pay that interest on the front end, and then you start hammering down the principal, and you start seeing real gains. So subject to financing can be a time machine. And if you don't understand that, go like to mortgagex.com, just play around, look at some amortization tables. Look at what happens when you buy the property when you're like that same $1,200 payment. Well, year 7, we're actually making some real headway. I'm gaining equity every single month, right? And so that's one of the advantages of not only can I get a lower interest rate, which is not hard to do in this environment, right? Almost everyone has a lower interest rate than current interest rates. That's one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of inventory, right? Is the vast majority of the country has a rate of 5% or less. And when I say vast majority, over 70%. And there's tons of people that have deep equity. You know, so this can be like an advantageous thing for a buyer where you get to jump into a lower interest rate.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good, the time machine analogy is actually really good, in fact, on there. Big risk with this one.
Big risk.
Right. So the boogeyman, this is what comes up in pretty much every subject to conversation around there, which is just going to be what happens when the lender calls the note, right? What happens when they find out if they see this? What do I do?
I'm going to say we're going to revisit this. We're going to get Zach up here. We're going to talk about this because this happens. I don't know what that slide is. Like this happens. This is not as rare as it used to be. So we're going to talk through and get in the weeds on that one.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's get past the mitigating
Sure.
risk. We'll go through. Yep.
Yeah, just know that it's going to be holding for a long time.
Awesome. And then lease options. Anybody done a lease option? Ever? Nate has, Phil has.
Zach, Phil.
Yeah. Would you do it again? Okay. The best. I love it. The best. That's also, Zach's got something to say about lease options. Really, really straightforward. Who's paid rent here at some point in their life? Awesome. Fantastic. So we all know what that's like to pay rent. We've all signed a lease at some point. Great, right, Cory?
Yeah.
This is rent to own, but it's not like furniture or that couch that you thought was a good idea,
Yeah.
right? So why would I want to do this as a tenant buyer?
Well, of course, the first one is it puts them on just a good path to home ownership.
Yes.
Right, it's one of the biggest things we really stand on in here is just encouraging people, if you don't already own a home, buy a home, get in, get your foot in the door. That's really where a lot of these things start
Yes.
overall.
I honestly used to think, this is a true story, my first exposure to realtors, again, 2005. Like, if you have ever maybe not met a good realtor, go back to 2005. Like, really not good realtors. Like, shockingly bad criminal realtors, and I couldn't stand any of them as a mortgage broker, right? And I just hadn't met a lot of good, and so I just thought like it was all propaganda. NAR was full of shit. Like, and then I'm like, oh no, actually, like I do like the lobbying. It does turn out that home ownership is like the gateway to the middle class, and like the gap between homeowners and renters, it's pretty shocking. There's a 300%, gap in household wealth.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like the single biggest indicator. There's a racial wealth gap in this country that's directly tied to a housing wealth gap in this country that is directly tied to policies that HUD enforced into the 70s. Racial housing covenants, like it is the single biggest thing. We think homeownership, is everyone should be a homeowner. I can't think of many reasons not to be, unless, you've got access to some amazing deals, right? Where like you could put that cash and flip it and you control a market. Otherwise, I just don't really think it makes a lot of sense not to be a homeowner. Duke, yes?
Is the gap wider now or not?
What's that?
Is the gap wider right now?
Is the gap wider? Has it been increasing? Yeah. Yeah. If you go back, there's a really great side note tracking the recovery. And it was talking about, coming out of COVID, we had a K-shaped recovery. So here in Knoxville, if you made more than $60,000 during COVID, who did you know that bought a boat? I do. They were buying boats, they were buying big trucks because stuff was on sale. Employment went up more than 6%. If you made less than $27,000 in Knoxville, you had 25% unemployment because you're working in service industries and they're shutting you down and you can't go to work, but you're an essential worker, right? So it has been growing. So the median is crazy on that. The average and the median. We can email that out in the newsletter.
Yeah, that's a good one to
Yeah.
go back to. That was really fun data to dive into, just to see the real disparity in that.
Yeah, and I think it's just
Changed.
something to talk about as we're seeing, it's starting to come here, but as we're seeing nationally, like home ownership seems to become more difficult for people. It's a great conversation to have. I'll get off the soapbox, but
It's fair.
I just think
No, but
it
it's
is important.
No, but it is. It's fair points. I mean, it gives somebody first one like a pathway to freedom or a pathway to home ownership in there. From there, they get to certainly build up equity in a largely like rising market. We know that historically homes go up at an average about 4% per year. You're gonna have ups, downs, big high years, but the average, as they've been tracking this since the 70s.
Does anybody know when we say they go up historically 4% what that actually means? It means if you go back to when they started tracking it in 1972 and you draw a straight line, you can draw a straight line at 1972 at 4%. Like that's the average. So you can plan on that. If you're buying at the peak of the market, if it's during COVID and you're in bidding wars and you're paying, like cash to get into a property like above asking, no, you might have lost money on that asset. It's not appreciating. But that's that 4% number, and you can just go look this up. Fred is a great source for this. If you Google Fred, that is how you get direct information from the Fed, and you can go look up all of this stuff, tons of charts, and check out Logan Motoshami at Housing Wire. He's got some of the best information. He has been making housing predictions for like 13, 14 years, and he's got a good track
Solid.
record.
Yeah, very good stuff. But the last part of it too just helped him again lock in a price in terms on the front end that they can take this with them.
Yeah, and what did that practically look like? So some of these hedge funds, American Homes for Rent, was running a program, and they're putting homes on the market. They were selling that. You had like a 5-year lease, and what they were doing, it's pretty interesting. You can go sell this. There's a 5% graduated increase in the purchase price every single year. Man, if you can go back in time and you could sign one of those leases in 2019, you would feel very smart, right? Because I can get in this, I'm leasing a property. Now the property was totally like market rate. These were not cheap properties, right? Because this hedge fund cleaned them up. They were charging you market rate. But you can make the gamble with the graduated increase. If the market goes sideways, I just
Walk
don't buy
out.
the house.
Yeah, you walk out.
But if I'm getting more than 5% appreciation, I've got that delta locked in and I can buy that property. So there can be some advantages even to a sophisticated buyer in using a lease option.
Yeah, for sure. When we talk about pros for sellers on this, I mean, I'm a big fan of this strategy, probably more than even say an owner financing thing out of it, because, right, you can certainly pass maintenance issues on to the tenants. I mean, they're taking responsibility for the property now at this point. So you're able to do that. To your point earlier, an eviction process is a lot less, more of a hassle than like a foreclosure. So in that they stop paying, you're out. Simple as that. We don't have to go through any kind of a foreclosure process in all this. You can also, too, lock in a great price and terms on this. And you can certainly collect a sizable non-refundable deposit that comes with that. So it's not just like a typical first month's, right? You can collect a couple of months worth of rent on the front end as a sizable deposit, which gives the buyer some real skin in the game. And for you, a seller, like a nice cushion of cash, just put right in your pocket.
If you want to go down this rabbit hole, grab Nathan afterwards, ask him about Unbankable. I have somebody that was running this play. Caleb Davis is in Great Edwardsville. Edwardsville is where the Air Force Base is, just east of St. Louis on the Illinois side. 20% of their market can afford to buy a home, but can't qualify for a home. So we call a blue ocean strategy, right? I've got access to an entire pool of buyers that no one else is competing for, right? So then I can command a premium while still providing a service, right? Letting people become homeowners. That's a great win-win. We like those kind of investments, right? Where we're adding value to the market and we're getting rewarded for being innovative, right? And taking risks.
Yep.
And if you haven't done one of these, pretty straightforward. There's a lease purchase. You can have a sizable down payment. You can structure it. You know, you can go talk to a great lender so you make sure you have a good exit strategy for that person that is buying it. But you can structure it a number of ways, some of which could give them credit for that so they have a down payment. Yeah,
I
Joy.
think another advantage on the buyer side too is maybe people can't get approved for a traditional mortgage. Maybe they're self-employed.
Yep.
They're not getting their taxes in the right place, and so they can get into homeownership.
Yeah. And so we've got folks that are looking for this right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's really, we talk about like two types of contracts for this. You got rental contracts and option contracts.
Yeah.
Option contract normally is going to have a time frame tied to this as to when the buyer needs to perform on this. So this, I've seen this strategy work like simply even for just folks relocating to a new market. They need somewhere for 6 months to a year while they're relocating, get set up, and then they can turn around and buy the home.
Yep. And then you've got also just a rental contract, right? But I think it'd be great. We can go through, we've covered this one already. Yep. So the tenant can pay over our market. If you're running this play, you need to learn how to screen tenants, right? So this is the same thing. We've got another session we teach how to manage property, right? All of these things, new levels, new devils. You need new skills when you're running a new place. Yes?
What's the longest terms you've seen on those contracts for how long it extends out?
What's the longest lease you could sign?
Yeah, that you've seen, like when somebody does that, they time frame.
I've seen those 5-year leases, but I don't know, has anyone else seen 3?
More than a 5 year.
I haven't, but you could write. Yeah, I don't know. Be good. Is there any question? Anybody seen? Anybody have any input?
I was in like a community education community where they were doing typically like 3 to 4 year contracts where
Yep.
they were doing lease sandwiches.
Sure.
Because they were doing sandwich leases and they were doing like 3 to 4 years, probably closer to 4 typically it sounds like, because there is always the chance that that buyer falls through.
Okay.
So then that gives you an opportunity to do it again.
Okay, thank you.
I would see no reason you couldn't do it for a longer term if
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you from signing a longer or just having renewal periods, or I think typically what you'd see if it's working effectively for all parties, 24 months should be sufficient for anyone, right, to make the necessary changes to become eligible to purchase, unless there's something else. Again, it depends. Bankruptcy, previous foreclosure, whatever, like to muddy the waters. Again, you want to, they really, if you're looking out for all parties involved, right? If I was like, if Cory and I were negotiating this deal independently, right, as just a transaction broker, then I'd want to make sure that that tenant buyer had a really good idea of what it's going to look like to transition to permanent financing on the front
And
end.
the reciprocal could be if maybe it's a 10-year period that they have to
Sure.
do whatever.
Yeah, but and then when you go on the commercial side, you can see all kinds of creative. You kind of see everything because there's less regulations, right?
Yeah, the biggest thing on it is just always running credit and background checks, just like any other normal rental, anything you would otherwise do. Yeah, tenant buyer should be responsible for all the repairs that are going to come with it. They are taking over the property at this point. You're giving them that option, that opportunity to buy the property.
Yeah, and what we find is psychologically, if you do this thing correctly, especially if they're putting down a down payment, you're getting someone that feels empowered as an owner of that property, is going to treat that as an owner, right? With the same difference that we see, we've all seen this on a street, where you can tell which houses have tenants in them and which are owners in them, because there's just a pride of ownership that comes into there. There tends to be different upkeep.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yep.
I think we probably got, yeah, take a big deposit. I mentioned, 2-3
Yeah,
months.
we talked about some credit. Yep.
Have a lender
Ooh, I
ready.
like that auto draft. You've done that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's how I do pretty much all of my leases at this point. It's everything comes out right there at the first. Everybody
Yep.
gets notified. It's a direct deposit. It's pretty fantastic.
And the thing we find, like when people run into trouble, it's because they deviate from the basics, right? Did you run a background screen? Did you run a credit screen? Were you doing regular inspections, right? And again, like all of these things come with risk. Kristen left. One of my favorite stories is Kristen got called coming here to bail somebody out. This realtor wrote a lease. Like she's not supposed to write leases. She wrote a lease for somebody. They put a tenant in place there. Came to do the inspection. The tenant was like, the bedroom's really messy. Do you mind if you don't go in there, right? Out in West Knoxville. They said, oh, sure, that's fine, right? Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms raided the house because they were counterfeiting currency. They had the machines in the master bedroom. So, like, apparently it is very expensive to get out, like, smoke bombs or whatever they used when they raided this place.
Flashbangs.
They did quite a bit of damage to the place, and this realtor was having kittens because she exposed herself to all this liability. So like, we've been doing this long enough that I know nothing anymore. I was like, anything is possible. Literally anything can happen, right?
That's the truth.
Yes.
That's the truth, yeah. Dealing with people is just what's gonna, you give it enough opportunities and times, right? The law of averages, like something's gonna inevitably happen.
Yes, so you just want to have some systems and processes in place and don't deviate from the systems and processes. And like one of the reasons I want to have systems and processes in place is because I want to treat people consistently. We're all subject to bias, right? It's one of the reasons why as agents, we train new agents to have scripts, because then you make sure that you don't make an assumption. You're not like, oh, Rashid's sophisticated, so I don't need to explain this to him, and then I miss a part of the process, and I didn't give him the same level of service that I'd give to Cory or to Dustin, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
So just some simple, I'd say, systems and processes.
Yeah, and really to kind of to put a bow on this part of it, really is just like if
The tenant/buyer changes their mind, can't close in time, can't meet that. Again, like you can extend some grace, you can let them renegotiate that in any way, but at that point you do have the option to really keep that deposit on there and rinse, repeat at that point as well.
All right. Who wants to hear from an actual expert today? Yeah? I love it. Who came here to see Zach Clift? Yes, let's go, Zach. Come on up here, Zach.
Come on up, Zach.
So,
What's up, dude?
Yes.
Good to see you.
Zach is a local investor. He runs a website called The Creative Finance. So there's some courses, there's some coaching. When I was looking for topics, I was talking to Richard and Jason, and like, oh, you have to talk to Zach if you want someone local that's been doing this, that's done, over 20 of these. Like he's someone that's in the arena that can answer questions. We can get into the weeds. We can try to stump Zach. So we're so glad to have you here, Zach. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
I know Cory is excited. Cory's got questions. Cory wants to know how to run this, Zach. So.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll go quickly through what I got prepared, but I'm guessing you have questions, so I'll try to get through that so you can ask your question. How do you?
Oh, yeah, I'll switch this. Switch this over here. Boom, 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 boom. This one?
Yep. And just go ahead and go like
Who are you, Zach, and how did you get started?
Yeah, so I started in real estate about 11 years ago. I was flipping, and I flipped for a long time, multiple years.
Got it. Put it right there.
Here, like this far. Okay, sorry. But yeah, I was flipping for probably 10 years, no, 8 years or so, and before I started thinking like, oh, I might want to hold some of these for rentals or try to make some monthly money versus always looking for that next deal.
How many were you flipping?
So I was mostly doing 1 or 2 a year. I'm a W-2 employee, so I was just doing this on the side, and then kind of really took a lot of it. COVID made me think differently, and then so started doing a lot more things after that. So I started. I moved back to Knoxville area in 21, and was did several flips, some land flipping and that kind of thing, and then a partner of mine said, "Hey, have you heard of this guy, Pace Morby?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not sure who this guy is." And so then I looked it up, and then the next thing you know, I bought my first sub 2 deal in 22, and then been buying ever since. So it's kind of my background.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that one? I would be curious to hear like your first subject to, what was that like going into that? What did that conversation look like in terms of how you pitched that, you know?
So yeah, this was an on-market deal. So I also during COVID decided to get my realtor license as well, and was looking at some off-market kind of things, but one just piqued my interest. It was on Caldwell, I think in 37917.
7 North Knox.
Yep, yeah, North Knox, and it had been listed for some time, and I saw and I just looked it up. You know, with being a realtor, you get access to the tax records. So I was looking, you know, when did they buy it? How much did they buy it for? Versus what is their list price? And it was a separation. So that they had bought it basically a year and a half or so before, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to try and see what I can do with it. And it was not the best quality. I mean, it probably had been flipping probably 3 or 4 years before that, but it still had been loved, I would say, for a little bit. But yeah, I talked to the agent and just said, hey, you know, this is the kind of way I'm looking at buying this property. I don't see really any other way to purchase it. And I just kind of outlined, hey, this is, I would be taking over the existing loan. I would bring their down payment, the spread between their list price and the loan value. And they would get, a portion of that would go to the realtor. I would waive my commission, and then we would close at a local title company. And they accepted almost immediately, because one was leaving, one of the people was moving out of the country, and the other one was going somewhere else. And so that was my first deal.
That's
for
cool.
a sub 2 deal.
Yeah. So that seller's situation in that circumstance at least allowed where they needed that bridge of cash or that delta that was there that you brought to the table for there, but they didn't necessarily care about it on the backside of that, like in search of that they were willing to let you just go ahead and like take over the payments and keep it going.
Yeah, that's right. And so when I think about sub 2 and seller finance, I think on the sub 2 side there's some sort of pain, whereas on the seller finance side there's generally some sort of gain they're going to be able to get out of that.
There we go.
Yeah, that's the slide. If you go back one more, this is the most important one that I have to tell myself. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should, because I bought a few where I didn't even go to the property to go look at it, and so when you do that, there's always some surprising things. And you know, and these were on market deals, and they were like ones that creative picturing. This was
Sure.
Yeah.
I've got one there.
A little movie magic.
I went out and looked at a house. I was dual licensed. I was selling property in Florida, and I found out that brick fireplace was just peel and stick, like stickers. Yeah, like, oh yeah. Very, very different in person.
That's pretty cool. So
strategy, I mean, we talked about a few here in terms of owner financing subject to lease options. What do you find is the most, I want to say almost like just kind of like beginner friendly? Like if I was just looking to get into one strategy in particular, is there any one that necessarily fits the kind of easier entry to it?
It'd definitely be seller financing. Subject to we all know the pros. You're taking over a loan, you can get in cheap, you can you get that historical difference there, but the issue is lots and lots of paperwork and ongoing issues. And like I've purchased one that does not have an online account, so I can never check. It's a paper statement every month, and they won't let, and you can't pay online, so you have to send a check, and then you just wait until see it clear, so you know you paid it.
And just trust it goes through.
You just trust. So there's lots of some crazy stuff out there, but yeah, seller finance is, regardless of basically any kind of creative strategy, you're going to be married basically to your seller of some kind, because you're either paying their mortgage and they're hoping you're paying it, or you're paying them directly and you're going to go. Like I have one guy, he just likes to talk, so we, go hang out. My partner goes out and does that, but it's like every month he just wants to go hang out, and but you have lots of different situations and you're married to them, so you have to make sure you're good with them. So
yeah, the relationship on the front end has got to be solid, and that's really just what's setting the tone for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, when you're doing this, you have to build rapport with either the realtor if you're doing on the MLS, or it's the actual seller. We'll have the conversations of when I submit offers on the MLS, I basically put an email out there and said, hey, this is what I've done. These are the properties I've bought from these realtors on the MLS, and you can talk to them. You can talk to a mortgage broker that I use that will help your seller find another mortgage if they are going to need that sometime down the line, and we'll have discussions, a three-way discussion with me, their agent, and the seller too. So you're just because you want everybody to be comfortable when you're doing these kind of deals.
So that first deal that you did, what was attractive to you? Because it sounds like the price they were looking for, like why were you willing to buy it sub 2, but you weren't willing to buy it just straight up?
Oh yeah, so it was a no equity deal, and it was basically market value.
Yep.
And most of my sub 2 deals have been right at market. They're always low equity, but this particular deal had a 3 interest rate, and so it was attractive as far as that goes.
Was it attractive to you because you didn't have to go qualify for another loan as a W-2?
Well, there's that, and to all the bank folks, I'm sorry, but it's really painful to go through that process and try to get things done. So. Last year I had something like 20 closings, and there was no way I could do that with how many bank pulls and all that kind of stuff would happen last year. But yeah, for that first deal, it was, I had cash and I had ability to do it. I just felt like, well, if I'm going to get a rate at that rate, it'd probably been 5%.
Gotcha. Okay, so there was already a difference in interest rate at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was, I would probably get a DSCR loan, maybe something like that. So it just made sense to me to take over a 3% rate, not hit my credit, and be able to go forward.
Got it. Perfect. So it's not the like, hey, I went and found the 70% of ARV and I got it subject to, and no, I went and bought something at market value, but it made sense to me because I was looking at a bigger picture. There's a delta there, and I could also get in with just my down payment.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you're going to find that. If you are looking if you find a deal that has a big spread, which I have one here I bought late last year, but they're generally going to have some issues. So you're actually going to do some remodeling, or you're going to have to put some money into it. I generally don't like to put any money in it. I like to, or on the front end, I have very low on the front end, and a lot of those I've been wrapping, so I've been selling on seller finance on the back end. So I prefer not to have to do any work to any of the property. So
what I'd love to hear is Cory is a king of role play. He was sitting there role playing yesterday. Is like, can y'all walk through that conversation of Cory is not a sophisticated realtor, is full of fear, I'm not Zach, so I haven't done 20 of these. Like, how do I open that conversation with somebody?
Yeah, I'd be genuinely curious, like, can we walk through that conversation, I guess, setting that up. You mentioned you got like 3 people on the phone together, so.
Yep. I'll add this. You get told no to a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll put that out there.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's generally I have a. What are we doing, the 3-way, or you want to start? So basically, I call
calling you
the
initially.
realtor. Yeah. So, hey, this is Zach Clift. I'm calling about 123 Main Street.
Sure, yep, we got that for sale, how can I help you?
Yeah. So hey, I've noticed that it's been on the market for some time. Is there anything going on with that, or what's the situation with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been out there for a while. Everybody kind of knows the market's a little bit slow right now. Sellers are motivated, they'd like to sell, certainly, and we're just waiting for the right buyer at this point.
Sure. So what's their plan after they sell this property?
They're just going their separate ways, right? So they're splitting up. The state seems like they're staying local, but just splitting up, so they need to sell this thing.
Okay. So I'll just tell you a little bit how I buy property. So one of the ways that I buy property is by taking over the existing loan. So I would come in and ask, I'd pay your commission, waive mine, and make this closing in minimum 10 days, as long as they want. Is that something that you might be interested in?
Yeah, sure. How would we do that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna send you over an offer, but in that offer, I'm gonna include in my email a little bit how it works. So the loan would stay in the seller's name, but the deed would transfer to my name. I'm gonna provide you some references that I've bought before.
Got it. So the loan stays in their name, but the deed goes to you in that. What's maybe the upside for them? I mean, what if they don't want to? What if you don't pay?
That's right. So when we sign at closing, I normally sign a mirror wrap. So what it's going to look like is that I'll owe them, and they can take it property back, and they'll get to keep all the money that I paid on the front end, plus any payments I've made towards the property in between.
It's a little sophisticated.
Did we lose anyone there?
What if they split? How do they split, if they're separated, I mean, they're both gonna want to split the property. So what's the win for the people that are separated? Neither one gets money on the front end, then they just have a property that carries over?
No, they would get money on the
They would
front
get
end.
cash on the front end.
Yeah.
Okay, how is that determined?
It's really, when I'm looking at it, I'm looking at a list alone. So if I see, generally I'm looking at the tax record, and so they've probably bought in the past 3 to 5 years, and they've either are really close to that. So like I've paid up to basically around 10% is my number. Like if I can pay the 10% spread, and they'll get that at closing. Sometimes I pay the closing costs in addition if it's good enough. But yeah, they'll get money on the front end, and then depending on what you can do different things. Like if it's worth more, which I'd say 90% they're not, but you could also do a seller finance on the other side too, so they get monthly payments too.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I was just thinking like if they're separating, they're gonna need 2 houses after that instead of just one. So how do you counter for that type of situation where, they would need to qualify if they still have a loan?
Yes.
Neither one would be able to qualify on their own, so it'd have to be a win on their side. Is where I guess the confusion would be.
So most of the time, what I run into is that neither of them want to pay the mortgage payment, and so they may be a month or 2 behind because for whatever reason they don't want to be associated with the property anymore. Or like one of them's maybe moved out, and the other one's not willing to pay it, and so that's kind of where I'm generally coming in at is something like that.
They don't want to be associated with the property or the payment.
Or the payment, yeah, and
Or each other.
exactly all of those, yeah. And I've had to do it where you'd have to go separately from the husband or the wife or whatever. So it's
So what would be the exit for them? Like the end game after, once the property sells?
So to repeat Brooke's question, and I think it's not really different whether it's 2 people or 1 people, just the situation, it's the same, some of these are the same questions. So let's start there and then we can split into the specifics of 2 people, would just be, hey, I've done this subject too, what do I where do I go on to? You've taken over this, the loan's still in my name. How do I go get another house?
Yeah, so I do servicing on all mine. And so what that does, it shows that I'm making payment through a third party. And they could take that to somewhere else to get an additional loan later down the road.
Yeah,
If they
and-
were divorcing, would they not have to like count that property as
So-
an asset or divided? So how do they counter that where it makes it a win where it doesn't look like they're still having a shared property?
So we got some, you wanna come up here, Morgan, we got some, this is where we're getting into the exit strategy on
There's a lot
on
of
the
people I
mortgage
feel like
side.
that would be wanting to exit that can't, like they
Sure.
have, divorce or separation and need.
Yeah,
I think that would make it easier.
Here you go.
Well, because I think this is but I think skipping it would be, this is a use case that sounds like it's more likely, actually, as people are getting, the first one he bought, they were getting separated.
Yeah, I bought a few that way.
So this is the very first deal he did, was this exact scenario. Yeah, go ahead. Morgan's gonna talk about, what we're really asking about is what's the exit strategy for this buyer, like how are they going to buy another purchase? So go ahead, Morgan.
After, for most primary home loans, or FHA, conventional, all that, once a debt is paid by another party for a year, and that's proven, it can get excluded from their income testing.
Okay, so it would just be a year
Yes.
upfront, and so basically they would have to have an
After
agreement
a
that
year, they
it's
can
a
have
year
that.
they can have it, they would both have it.
But
Okay.
let's also remember, I mean, this is a COVID loan, these are general COVID loans, right? I mean, they're reasonably low payments. Just because they've got this on their debt ratio does not necessarily mean they can't go forward and buy another house. And, well, quite frankly, when people are splitting up, the first step is almost never go purchase another home, it's become a renter.
Right. Figuring out all the combined stuff to get separated.
So let's walk, I see some questions. I see some, Jamal's got a question. What's your question, Jamal?
Got a question. I wanna know how can the loan stay in their name, and the deed go in his name if the bank's still on the property?
How can so now we're getting to how can the loan stay in their name and the deed go into another party's name while the loan still stays in place? And this is, we skipped over this earlier. We're gonna talk about due on sale here in a second, Zach. Yeah, so how can that work?
So they're two separate things. So the financing versus the deed, right? So that's how you can do either one or the other. So in my situation, I'm taking over the property, but I'm paying their loan, and their loan's staying in their name.
So I think it'd be helpful, let's talk about the difference between a deed, a mortgage, and a note, right? So a note is pretty simple. If you've ever borrowed money and you've got the amount, the interest rate, and the terms of repayment, that is a note, right? You could write it on a sheet of paper. You can do a promissory note like that. We all got tracking that, right? A deed is like what the legal transference of that property, right? The deed shows ownership. That's why you have to do title, and they have to go back and, right? Hey, can we research this unbroken chain of title to make sure that, like, right, this deed is actually valid? A mortgage is the legal instrument which attaches a note to a property, right? So, but I've got to know the difference between those three items before we get in the weeds on this stuff, because I can start getting lost here. So the mortgage can remain in place. One of the challenges, just to lay this out, and I'll let Zach talk about the specifics, is in almost every mortgage that I'm aware of, there is a due on sale clause, which means that if a transfer of ownership takes place in that property, the mortgage owner has the ability to call that note, to say, hey, I want my payments, you got to pay me off, right? There are strategies that folks, yeah, Nathan, there are strategies that people discuss. There are ways around this. Some of them, be careful who you listen to. Nathan, what do you got?
I was gonna correct Morgan, because of September of last year.
Come on up here, Nathan. All right.
I've had something else.
Okay. And then we'll let Zach talk about how he's actually running the place. So, but we want to run through the mortgage guidelines so we're clear.
So to be clear, you can no longer exclude the debt. September of last year, Fannie came out with an announcement to clearly do this due to creative financing. The only way to exclude the debt is if you're on the promissory note. And you cannot be on a promissory note unless you sign the mortgage. So you cannot exclude without three things. One is on the promissory note, no delinquencies in 12 months straight. That was September of last year, which is why everyone has switched from second home loans to investment, from creative financing in some situations to loans. So that was Fannie Mae September 2nd letter, I think.
What is,
Sorry, I nerd out.
So what, you're asking what a promissory note is?
No, what does that mean for the actual financing buyer?
I don't understand the question.
So he explained that there is a change, but I still don't get what's the change mean for me if I'm just buying something subject to.
You're asking what the change is for you as the,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the,
What does
the
that mean?
buyer or the seller? Will that change would affect the,
I'm just buying something subject to.
It wouldn't. So
it's gonna affect
the
that.
seller.
Yes, let's talk about that. That letter is a change in the Fannie underwriting guidelines. So that letter is gonna affect someone who's purchasing using Fannie Mae financing. So that is an effect for your seller for their potential exits, like what are they doing in the future? And their ability to exclude this property from their buyer requirements. Fannie and Freddie are not the only guidelines, but Fannie guidelines often are, you'll find other loan products are written off of Fannie guidelines. We can get really into the weeds on this stuff, yep. So how are you doing, let's walk that through on this one that you did. Like, yeah, how are they moving on? Or what's the, how are you getting, due on sale, or what are you doing now with those new requirements? They're gonna promissory, like, what does that look like?
So for that particular deal, I actually did a hotel. So I bought it, I held it for a few months, and then resold it on the MLS. I generally put in there that the note's going to be there for about 7 years when I put my offer in. So ideally, on the back end is I'm refinancing. If it turns out in the next 7 years it looks good, or just selling the property. So some of the things I do is the wraps, and so there's two options. One is my wrap buyer will pay me out sooner, which is not ideal because I'm collecting interest. So
What's a wrap?
So a wrap is buying on seller financing or subject to or whatever, buying it, and then you're just putting additional terms on top of your original note and selling it to a new buyer. So
You've got an example of one.
yeah,
Right,
it's
Yeah.
towards the back. Yeah, keep going.
Let's go, because I do want to pull that up because that wasn't good.
This one was in Morristown. This was a divorce situation also. But yeah, we bought it at a 3% interest rate. It needed, I had to put I think $800 in there. It had a small leak, but then we sold it on those new terms there. $20,500 went to the agent. I took I waived my fee, and then also the majority of that went to the seller. And then we put it on a seller financing note to an end buyer, and they brought in $45,000 down at 8%. And so this was 2022, I think, late 22. So now their note's probably actually in the money. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like in this, right, you went and put $20,500 down, and then went and resold it. New buyer came in, brought in $45,000, so you recouped your initial down payment plus
Yep.
an additional 25 grand,
Yep.
call it, right? And then there's a spread there of about, what, $860 a month that comes off of that.
Yep. Yeah. So that like I said, make $800 a month or so, and they're good. They're a good buyer, and they actually after they bought this for a while, they've have asked me to buy more for their families, like around. So that's kind of been what we've been looking for the past couple of years.
So
Yeah.
did you sell that on the MLS?
No, I didn't sell it on the MLS. No.
This one? Okay,
Yeah.
so you just kind of found a buyer, like wholesale? Yeah, like how did you find the buyer for this?
This was Facebook.
Okay.
Yep.
And so they
So what was that like when you were trying to sell it? Because they took over what was the original loan, correct?
No.
Or they used regular financing?
No,
So let's,
I got it. I did this with my own house, I should know.
Zach bought the property, he had a payment on it, then he turned around and sold it.
Yeah.
He created a note when he sold it, so he combined, used an owner financing strategy. Does that make sense? Like Zach into the details, but I think what I'm good at is big picture concepts, right? There's just a delta. He put this in there, but again, if this is really confusing, go watch like how to invest in notes. Great YouTube channels, over 450 videos. And then I got to start understanding notes. Like this one you just find out there's more and more when you start pulling on the thread, right, Zach?
Yeah.
More and more to learn.
yeah, and essentially you can do about anything. So it's just, you just have to think through it. But yeah, so like I'm the middleman in this. So like if for some reason they didn't pay, I still have that mortgage. So, you know, I'll be that middleman for the next 28 years or whatever
You're
that's going to be.
responsible for that first.
Yeah, I'm responsible for the first note,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Zach said, you were talking like you don't want to do wraps anymore.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the eviction versus foreclosure. I have one particular out in I can't remember now. It's just out in the country, and they tend to not pay for like 5 or 6 months until they get the next foreclosure notice, and then they pay it all at once, and then they do that same thing over and over again. Pro is I get lots of late fees. Con is that I have to deal with it for forever, I guess.
You're having
so.
to float it in that.
Yeah, I have to
that
float
gap
it for
period,
the, yeah.
right?
And, you know, a lot of you don't need money to buy you don't have to have money in the deal, but you do need money. So that's the big thing with creative finance. And I think I posted on Grid the other day that, you know, subject to notes are something like 17% in default right now.
Did I see a 30% default number, Nathan? Were we talking about this?
That's from a servicer with private notes. She said when you cycle out certain loans and you look at sub-2 as a whole, it's a higher delinquency with a certain private servicer because a lot of them are FHA loans, and they were taking advantage of the COVID relief money that ends in this coming February.
Got it. So that's something to be kind of buyer beware on the seller side is people that are doing these loans, unsophisticated operators, maybe watching stuff online, maybe without a lot of resources to back when things go sideways, right, are defaulting at a 30% rate.
There's one piece of color I want to add to that. I got a fight with someone on that. Yeah, not Instagram. So FHA loans overall have a 12-month running 11% delinquency rate, right? So I mean, these, understand in my mind, most sub-2 deals I've seen are pre-bankruptcy alternatives. That's ultimately a lot of times the alternative or a short sale. So even if there is a 17% delinquency rate, which I find plausible, it's not necessarily worse for the ecosystem versus what would have happened to that note, obligation, and home in going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, it's like if you're the investor, though, you shouldn't be defaulting. You know, I've several of mine were some in pre-foreclosure stages, and you know, when we start making those payments, you know, their credit goes from the gutter out. You know, so that's kind of where sub-2 comes in you know, it's actually providing a service to people.
You said this before, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. So we talked about this and how to identify motivated sellers, right? And one of the reasons why we think the agent investor is one of the strongest places on there, because to be an agent, to be a real estate agent, you've got to have a fiduciary responsibility. It's the highest duty recognized under the law. You have to put your clients that you are in a fiduciary relationship with above your own needs. Now, when you're on the other side of a table, you don't have a fiduciary responsibility for them, but often when we're going into these situations, for this to be effective, for us to build trust, right, the rapport that we're going to need to do this in the long, I am providing a viable solution for you, and I can look you in the eyes and tell you, if you do this, we are going to look out for you. This is going to work for you. We have the sophistication to do this, and we have the resources where if something goes wrong, even if I do a wrap, I can back the play that I am making, right? And that's why, you know, Zach is up here walking us through this, right? And like able to continue doing this and get into all the details on this, because when they don't pay the mortgage for 6 months, Zach has the independent resources to cover that and honor his obligation to the original seller. Right? You know. So unfortunately, the strategy of you can buy real estate with no money down is
You can buy it with no money down. You just need money also.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What questions do you have, Cory, on this?
I mean,
you said you had questions coming in here.
Yeah, I mean, I was intrigued initially in terms of your journey and getting into it. I definitely wanted to hear some of these scenarios as far as, I mean, how they played out, like, you know, in real time. You brought a few examples in here. You know, where you came across these, for example, like we just break down this one in Strawberry Plains, for example. Where did it come from? What challenges have you had along the way that has kept you on this path? Right? There's had to been enough wins to keep you going, but I know there's also been some challenges along the way. So I'd really love to just hear more about some of these plays in general, but then some of those challenges that you've really had, like some lessons learned now that you've been doing it for a good while.
I'll start with this Strawberry Plains one. This was off market. It was a referral from Jason McDaniel. So he had bought some property from this person before, and I was needing some help with some taxes in 23. So I originally went to this property, I want to say in like September of that year, and it wasn't in great shape. There was like half the folks were paying rent, and it was probably the worst single apartment / house I've ever been into. One of the units, like it was cockroaches, and it was the worst. I've had houses with rats and stuff, but this was worse than that. But the guy didn't care because he was super rich and didn't care about it at all. He didn't care he wasn't even getting paid. So I presented him. He was willing to seller finance, which was great, but he still wanted a lot more down and a lot more in general. And so I just went. I was like, you know, I just feel like that's not real. He wanted just too much, and so I walked away. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, he was telling me, he's like, yeah, we got this other guy. He's willing to pay at least $100,000 more down, over a couple hundred more on top of that. And I was like, yeah, that just is not going to be what I'm going to be. But like it happens, you know, that didn't turn out because, you know, when you get these, sometimes the sellers are a little bit, maybe embellish a little bit more. Sure. And also, if you've heard the saying, buyers are liars and sellers are worse, you know, so there's that too. But yeah, he came back and said, oh yeah, actually, you know, well, I'll take your terms now. And so it's like, okay, well, so I ended up buying that, closing, I think, December 23. But this particular property was, I mean, it was a doozy. And I've been flipping for a long time. Like I said, one of them was the worst. And I'll provide you the video because I only went in one time, and I had my contractor finish it, and then I went in after he got it cleaned out because it was just the worst.
Awful, right? Things
were flying, and it was smelling, and it was, and they left it full. It was full of stuff, food everywhere. Wow. So anyway, but yeah, so that one's been, I've been renovating. I renovated the 4 worst units early last year, and then I just actually finished 2 more a couple weeks ago. So,
So you did this one on a 7-year balloon, right? Which means like the original purchase price, like that note's due at the 7-year mark. Or I guess you could, I would imagine the plan is to stabilize these, improve them, and refinance out for the long haul.
Yeah. So I think my note on this is it's $4,200 a month or something like that. At the time when I bought it, it was making like $3,000 a month.
Okay. Yep.
We'll knock on wood, and once I get everything rented out, it should be making like $10,000 a month.
Sure.
And yeah, my strategy will be, I'm either looking to, I'll probably keep these. These are just really good property, but it'll probably just refinance come year 7, unless the market just changes a lot and I can make a lot more money. So.
Well, so it sounds right. Like the seller was in enough pain that they came
back around. They might have embellished on the front end, strung it out, but it got to a point where he was ready just to move on from it. At this point, though, he's getting at a 5% interest. He's making $3,000 a month, which is about what he's making before. So nothing changes for him. He doesn't have to maintain the properties anymore, really have anything to do with it. That's your problem now.
Yeah, that's
right?
my problem. Yeah.
Right. But now he gets to collect his money for the next 7 years in that. So he's going to make a decent return and then get a nice chunk of change when he's ready. And that gives you the time to go in, fix these up, continue letting them appreciate, building some cash flow, which I would imagine too just ends up kind of back into them just to help use that to stabilize it all. But you've got a nice exit on the backside, so it really does create a win-win, and I think it works for a pretty good classic scenario as far as for somebody who's maybe looking into the owner financing route. As you mentioned, that was probably the easiest thing to get into, the easiest, right, being a kind of a loosely used word there.
Yeah.
But for context, for people to get into it, this is how you can really create a nice win-win for a seller who's indifferent to the property or can really let it go. You've got the ability to go in there, help fix it up, stabilize it, and have a nice exit.
Yeah, it's been a really good property too, and I have a relationship with this guy plus all his children. So it's you're kind of talking about how you're kind of married to the person. So we've been together for I don't know, a little over a year and a half or so now. But
Nice.
nice,
cute.
but yeah, it's been a good property, and this is one where I have a 7-year balloon, but there's always this option of could I push it out further, and if rates are 12% come whenever that is 7 years from now, does it make sense to push it out? If you have that relationship, that you can still come back and negotiate. So.
And just that, I think one thing we highlight there is the importance of making offers, right? Oftentimes we see this again and again, Cory, you've seen this on the retail side.
Sure.
Like people will come back and consider previous offers maybe before they get realistic about the price and go market at that price. So they'll go reconsider like a cash offer on something on market before we drop the price, right? Or they'll come back to that term because it's a real term and there's some anchoring there of, well, I could just call this guy and this could be over. So, you've got to be writing lots of offers if I'm in this game. Yeah, so how many, what's the volume of offers you have out there? So you're doing 20 deals, how many offers do you think you've made?
Oh, probably 1,000. For a long time.
How many was that?
Probably 1,000.
So there we go, guys. It's the Michael Jordan thing. He missed more shots. Like it's the big, you got to take more shots. I love that.
Yeah, one thing on offers, especially on creative ones, if it's on Facebook posted by like a realtor or like a homeowner, don't write sub-2 ? Under it in the comments section. I see that a lot. That's not gonna work. So.
Is this the one with the green doors?
Garrett?
Actually, I have 2 with green doors. So, but this one does have green doors. My other property does too. So.
Yeah, Garrett.
I got a question around you structuring your balloon, as far as what's attractive for you or the advantage for you or the seller or on the buyer side as far as 7-year versus a 3-year balloon, 5-year balloon. What's your thought around structuring that balloon part of everything?
I want mine as far out as possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty. If I'm buying, I want the longest possible balloon.
Yeah, it's really, most of these are going to need some rehab, and so I want to be able to get everything done, the rent's up, and really this was the furthest one out because he thought he was going to die, so he's like, I'm probably going to die in between now and then. So that's most of the sellers are older, especially they're tired landlords. They're really tired landlords.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you ever get kickback if someone's like, oh, I'll take a 3, and you're just like if you've done in 3 or 5, I understand it's in today's rates and terms, it makes sense to push it out.
So I bought a duplex with its traditional financing plus seller financing. So I have very little in it. So it's highly leveraged, but I bought it kind of under market, and it's got a 3-year balloon on the seller finance portion. But my bank rate is really bad. So because it was a DSCR during the peak, and it's got like an 8% bank rate, but I got a 0% seller finance rate. So it kind of balances out.
And it's gonna come down to your seller, like, all of this comes down to your ability to identify rapport and uncover the why behind this and what's important about these individual terms, because sometimes they may negotiate a lot on one of the terms, but not another, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do anything, and you can put any kind of term in there when it's seller finance. That's the great, like, in my opinion, seller finance is better than subject to, because you could really change anything. You know, you can change your payment date. You can say, I don't start payments till 3 or 4 months from now. Or you can have a balloon, you not have a balloon. You can have no money down. You can have a lot of money down, low interest. You got all these different levels.
Interest-only periods.
Interest
Yeah.
only, principal only. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of options with seller financing where subject to, you're stuck with that term.
I saw Joey and then Garrett and then Steve and then Chris. So Joey.
Thank you. So on these deals, you're putting money down, and you're saying most of them need rehab. I'm assuming you're funding that out of pocket, and you're not crashing out on these at any point because you're financed with the seller. So is that tough for you to have all that money tied up in there for that long?
Yes. So I know some folks will get seconds and pull loans like that, but I was doing a good bit of flipping, so, and I have some monthly money, so I try to use my money first. And no one really, unless somebody knows, no one really wants to give me a HELOC on any of my apartment buildings. So,
So we talk about having a cash machine and a wealth machine, right? Like, 20 had been flipping for 10 years before he came in here, plus has a W-2. Like, again, like it's so if I'm just getting started, don't get discouraged. Like, I built the cash machine, right? And this is a long-term play wealth machine where I'm buying assets at market value and holding them for a long time. It's a long-term investment play, right? Not a speculation play.
oh yeah, that's definitely right. And like for these are going to be, like, when I refinance, I don't plan on pulling cash out. I want to pay these off because, in 10 years from now, I'm going to be almost paid off, right? So I'd like to be able to just straight cash flow, and I think those are some options.
I love that. So someone came up to me earlier and is newer. I think Steve, we're talking about this, like strategy. Strategy is one of the most overlooked parts in all of this. Lots of talks about tactics, but what's our strategy? Garrett.
What happens, I'm a W-2 guy myself too, so I was gonna ask just what you do for your W-2 and how is getting into flipping with that. But also, what happens if the seller does die and there's a 7-year balloon?
Yeah, so it would pass down to their heirs. If there's a will or, whatever, there would be something there that would show, like, how that note gets passed to, who that gets passed to. So it would still stay in place. Like this one, actually, specifically, he just went ahead and said, you're going to pay my kids and not me. So.
And if you're trying to research that, the word you want to Google or look up or discuss, some would be survivorship. Yeah, right. That the contract remains in place, and you'd have a contract with the estate, and then after it goes to the probate, you'd have that contract, that legally binding agreement would still be in place with whoever inherited the property after it went through the probate process. Does that make sense? Cool. Steve.
Where do you get your contracts to support these deals? It's probably not something that a regular attorney knows. Do real estate attorneys know how to write these, or you write them yourself?
So seller finance can be like a napkin. So I mean, you can just write it out.
What you do, or I would want something.
So I had this particular one. There was no contract. It just said, he called me. He told his the title attorney and said, hey, this is what he's willing to buy it for, and so that's what we're going to do. And they're like, okay, and we just went and paid for it. I have seller financing land that I bought. Same scenario. No, it wasn't a contract. It was just, hey, this is what it is. But I mean, you can write it down. It's not. You just have those terms. It's a math problem, right? When you're doing the calculation, but it's just you just write it out.
Where have you gotten the contracts for that where you've needed a full contract?
If you go to like Jerry Norton's YouTube, they have like a link underneath a lot of them anyway, a lot of his pages, and you can click and you get a free contract pack.
So there you go. Again, don't sue us, bro.
Or
Zach.
Yeah, I think that's on them. That's not on us.
Yeah. Yeah. But just my advice would be an hour of an attorney's time is worth some peace of mind. Chris?
When you're wrapping, you're disclosing the underlying debt to the, right? Okay.
That's right. So every that contract shows like this is you're not going to be able to access the original loan, but there is an existing loan on this property.
Yeah. Disclose, disclose, disclose.
So subject to and wraps have lots of disclosures and lots of pages.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Have you had a due on sale clause come into effect?
No, but I have talked to the bank before, so they've asked like what you've done, and I just told them. There's folks that you can actually buy insurance for now for due on sale, and then also there's a guy that's in the sub 2 community that kind of has his own thing where you can pay him a fee and he'll fix it.
are you buying these properties, let's say it's 123 Main Street, are you buying these in like a trust name, 123 Main Street, or just transferring into your name?
So most of them are just in I have a LLC that's just for that. But sometimes, depending on the agent, if they want me to, I will. I mean, I've done that before. So, but if it's up to me, I'm just going to buy an LLC.
And one of the biggest things when we're talking about investing again is like getting clear on your personal comfortability with risk and your comfort with leverage and with debt, right? And if you're like a high C and you're freaking out, go talk to Morgan and Nathan, and they will give you, I'm sure they'll be glad to nerd out with you about the industry statistics on how often due on sale clauses get called. They do, last year we did this, and I remember very vividly, Approach Lending was in here, our private money lender, and they were like, yeah, we just had one called. Like one of our buyers just had one called. So it does happen, right? And this is,
Yeah, and I think that's, I forget which mortgage house got bought out, but was it Mr. Cooper had,
yeah.
and so they're calling a lot more
Yep.
for those type of loans.
And you got to look at the underlying strategy of why the institution might want to call those, right? If you go back to post-Great Recession, when third parties were coming in and they were buying portfolios and they were strategically foreclosing on those portfolios, right, within there, it's because they saw the opportunity. The same thing could happen here. Someone sees the opportunity with, no, we want to start calling these because we've got money out at these low interest rates or whatever their reasoning is.
Yeah.
So again, maybe I need to look at and understand broader macroeconomic trends or understand finance markets if I want to, hedge my risk on some of these plays. What would you do if the due on sale clause had been enforced? What was your plan?
First is refi. Most of my wraps, most of my sub 2s are wraps, and so all my wraps are going to be higher than what my DSCR would be if I got one of those versus, or maybe a conventional, but it'd be refi because some of mine have a lot of equity, like me and Mr. Greg back there have a lot of equity in a couple, and so we would just refi those.
Would anybody like to grab? I tell you what, Zach, you want to grab lunch sometime?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you want to nerd out and go really deep on this, we'll go to lunch with the lender because a lot of the questions you have are really like deeply I think for most of us is, do I deeply understand exit strategies, both for myself and then for the party that I'm entering into this with, right? One of the biggest regrets that I have when I was a mortgage broker, I did one option arm. It's a negative amortization loan, and I'm quite sure that guy in Brooklyn probably lost that property potentially if he was making those payments, right? Because it was an adjustable rate mortgage, there's a prepayment penalty on there. You could pay less than, there's 4 options, and one of the options was a negative amortization, where you're paying less than it covers the principal and interest. It's for people like ourselves, like for investors or someone that's sophisticated, someone that gets bonus income, something like that. That's why the product existed, and then it became widely popularized, just kind of like sub 2. These niche things become widely popularized, right? And so just that's some advice I might throw out there, just like really understanding this stuff if you're going to sit across the table from somebody and explain it to them.
Yeah, and 2 things around understanding what you're buying. Kind of going back to buyers are liars and sellers are worse. Sometimes they will say they only have one loan, they actually have 2. or they don't know what kind of loan they have, and they actually have an arm, and also so just some you have to trust but verify, but also don't trust.
So we're going to hang around here. We'll answer some questions. You know, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And Zach, what's the biggest mistake you've made? What have you learned from the most?
I bought a house in Bristol. If you're friends with me, you've probably seen me post it. It was blue. I bought it sight unseen, and that was the creative photography one, and so that's definitely one. She also didn't know she had 2 loans, so 2 loans plus the floor was kind of jacked up. They just took the pictures kind of in the right angle that to make it look, oh yeah, it's flat.
Put the camera in level with the floor, so it looks straight on.
Yeah.
I love it. And what's the one piece of advice you get if, you know, a lot of people are in here because they want to use creative financing, because they want to get more leverage, or they want, I know when I'm talking to people like this, it's like, how do I get into investing if I don't have access to lots of cash? Like, what's your advice?
So I'm not a man of a lot of cash generally, so I think that's definitely a good start. But you don't have to have a lot of cash, but you do need to have some to cover you if something happens. You can partner with people, which people, you know, Bird Dog, you find the deal, you can get in for, maybe you get 10% of the deal and you get to be in it, and you maybe get a fee too. So
you could go be the Bird Dog, identify the deal, and then partner with somebody like Zach or someone else that's got the sophistication to run it. And that's a way, I think bird dogging is an excellent way to invest in real estate without cash.
Yeah.
One of the things, you know, ran this by some people that are giving me some feedback. I think, hey, we should really be talking about joint ventures, and, you know, private money are one of the most effective strategies is, are you leveraging other people's money? There are people around you that have access to cash, like Cory just did, where he borrowed the down payment on this one, right? Like, that's, I think, one of the most profitable arenas right now. You put no money out of your own pocket, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But those are the next level creative financing stuff. It's not just.
Yeah, I have several partners, so that's JV is definitely part of my what I'm doing, and I would say generally out of all the sub twos I have no money are not my money. So it's, you know, you get a partner if you can't be greedy on the front end, but if you're open to it and you can get deals done, so it's worth it to me to have monthly cash flow versus having sole ownership. So.
Thanks for coming. Anybody have a last question before we wrap up? Awesome. Give Zach a big hand. Thanks for coming out, Zach. All right, real fast. Couple announcements. Anybody go to our anniversary party last year?
I think so.
Yeah, the one in Kearns, like 170 people. Yeah. Okay. Well, they didn't know. They didn't come because they would remember it, because we had a party at Kearns with 170 people, and we lost track of how many drink tickets we gave out. You would remember if you were there. Yes.
What happened to the speaker there?
Oh yeah, the speaker. I borrowed my buddy's PA, and it went off the second floor of Kearns, which was real. And I had used it for something else, and I didn't tell him I was bringing it to there. And luckily, he's like the nicest guy ever. He was just totally
cool with it.
And it fell about 70 seconds before he showed up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, horrifying. Into like a loading dock, so it really fell.
It was easily 100 feet.
It was not good. We're having an anniversary party next month, so we will not be here. Where are we going to be, Cory?
Yeah, we're going to be at Crafty Bastard West, right here. So Kingston Pike and Pellissippi is going to be your nearest crossroads in there.
So like Caddy Corner from Calhoun's, where they put the pickleball courts in. If we're going to post this stuff, if you haven't been there before, there is parking to the east. There's parking to the right if you're looking at it. Like the pickleball courts took it all up. There's a huge like jewelry television lot to the right of it. It is going to be great. We've been to our anniversary party. We had it at Crafty Bastard West, and we are going to be talking about how to build an investment dream team. So we are going to make sure if you are a vendor, I know we got a painter in the back. Say what's up, Rashad. If you are a vendor, we want you to be there. Come talk to us because we want to highlight that. And if you are new, we are going to give you a list where you're going to leave there with your investment dream team. Right? One of the things that we might have skipped over here with Zach is like the importance of relationships. Zach has lots of partners and lots of relationships, and because of the relational equity, if something got called, relational equity is how you bail yourself out of those too. Hey, Cory, will you bail me out of this thing? Yeah, sure. We've done tons of deals before. I can step in and get creative, and I can take this over and perform. So that should be amazing, should be exciting. Invite your friends.
Yeah, come on up, bring everybody, bring anybody you think would be interested in this kind of community. We're always just looking to continue to grow it. We think that's gonna be probably the biggest opportunity of the year for you, again, if you are new, to have one spot where you can just build out your entire dream team right from there.
We've got 3 more events this month. So, same location, 3rd Friday of the month. What is that, Cory?
Yep, that's gonna be our Grid Coffee and Deals. That's a morning networking meeting we host here, the 3rd Friday of every month.
9 a.m. Our friend Andrew over at You Brew Coffee travels the country creating coffees. So he's going to bring coffee from some far-flung part of the country. He brings in, so if you're a coffee nerd, you need to be here because he brings in micro roasts from Charlotte or Oregon or whatever to try. It's sick. It's also where we analyze deals live. So if you're looking for deals, you want to talk about deals, I've got a developer coming that wants to pitch a deal to us. If you're curious about maybe a JV or like a syndication opportunity, they're looking for some capital investments. Some guys I've known 15 years, good people to know, good people to be in a relationship with. We've got 2 more events this month.
Yeah, so we got right the day after our coffee event is going to be our own Travis Dupree is hosting our Investors 101 meetups. It's an up.
I want to say that's May 18th, May 17th, May 18th.
16th, 17th.
Thank you.
16th,
16th, 17th. So 16th coffee, 17th is Investing 101.
Investing 101. I see some faces here that came to Investing 101 last week. So if you are new, you want to know, that's where we can talk about strategy, walk you through all that. And then on May 20th, Vernon Corum, CEO of Staycating. Anybody know Vern? Vern is a great guy. Is going to be doing a Knoxville STR playbook event. So we're going to run these, some different ones, some Smokies one, but this is going to be, if you are curious about doing short-term rentals in the Knoxville area, which is different than the Smokies, we're going to go through the financing, the restrictions. If you haven't been to one of Vernon's events before, Vernon brings in some killers. He did a rental accelerator conference last year, and I look up, and there is the CEO of, there's Price Labs, there's the CEO of Jetstream, there's the CEO of Rolio. We're all in the room that came for Vernon. So some of the best speakers in the country. Is a great wealth of information. Thank you all for coming.
Appreciate everybody.
Yes.